Center. At this time, I will introduce the board members. Lou Kahn,
Good afternoon.
Nathan Torr,
Good afternoon.
Vice Chair Peter Brothers.
Good afternoon, everyone.
I am Carla Warren. Phil Warren, Town Manager.
Good afternoon.
Recording Clerk, Town Manager. And Board Member Seeger is absent with notice. First item on the workshop agenda is W14-19, Lopes Lot Unmerger Request. John, would you like to speak?
Good afternoon, members of the board. I realize you have a very busy workshop agenda, so I will try to be very brief, to the point. And if you have any questions, certainly fire one ready, but I will try to skip through the staff review in a brief fashion, just because you have some other items. The purpose of this meeting is to consider a request from Jeffrey and Diane Lopes for lot restoration. They are sitting behind me. They're here this evening if you have any questions of them. The property in question is a .86 acre lot with approximately 192 feet of frontage located on Lake Winnipesaukee and Fish Cove. As you know, this process that we've been going through with lot restoration sunsets in 2016. To this point, we have processed two. One on Bear Island, one on Harris Road, and we have two pending. One is the current matter in front of us today, as well as another matter that you'll probably be seeing a little bit later this fall or early winter. The lots in question date to a 1963 subdivision that is recorded. It created 9 waterfront lots on Fish Cove. There was a series of tax map changes, which, in terms of numbering, that account for different numbers as it relates to the lots. But next, most important is that the Lopes received the property via quitclaim deed in September of 2010. And they received it as one deed, 2 parcels. The improvements to the property include a relatively small cape of approximately 1,200 square feet of living area that dates back to about 1965. There is a well, septic system, 2 sheds, and a dock. This particular lot is accessed via Lockheed Shores Road and has access and frontage on Western Lane. As I mentioned, the property is developed, and we've requested and received from the Lopes a plot plan that indicates the location of the house well, septic tank, field, sheds, and the dock. The shed, the plot plan provided by the Lopes indicates that the existing house is approximately 28 feet from the former shared line with Lot 10. In other words, all of the improvements are located on one of the 2 lots. And as you may recall in the Bear Island matter, that was a question as to the location, and in fact, in that case where the development occurred on a lot line, that was considered as a voluntary abandonment. In this case, in a similar fashion, we asked them to provide an accurate representation of the location of the improvements. They're all wholly located on one of the 2 lots, so we do not have that particular issue in this instance. In reviewing this through my office and with Jim Comerford, we have found no evidence of a voluntary merger that would prevent the owners from proceeding with this process. So in summary, we have confirmed the lot boundaries dating back to the prior subdivision. We have confirmed that the town merged the lots as a matter of policy in 1979. We have confirmed that there are improvements on the property, but however, based upon the plan submitted by the Lopes, it indicates that all those improvements are on one of the 2 lots. In a recent matter, the Bear Island request, the owner's name was Ilvisaker. The Selectmen had accepted the representation of the applicant, the plot plan, provided that the board's decision made it clear that the board was relying upon information submitted by the applicant. So I've drafted a motion which basically is cutting and pasting a little bit from the prior matter and included similar language that would put a flag in the registry of deeds. If anybody was wondering, was there an independent survey verification, the answer is no. And so we've provided that same type of clarification language in the draft motion, similar to the Bear Island matter. At this point, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them from a process point of view. The next step beyond the workshop would be to schedule a formal public hearing. I'd coordinate that through Phil in terms of the timing. So we put a mailing list together, we develop a notice, we send out certifieds, and this would come back before you as an action item at some point in the future. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Peter?
Yeah, just a quick question, if I may, John. I do understand that the last one we had on the animal, we did act on the owner's behalf in terms of that certification or plot plan, if you will. Has anybody from the town just gone out and walked the site?
Yes, I have inspected the property with Jim, and we've walked it, and very, very comfortable with the representation that you see on the plot plan.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments?
No, excuse me. Madam Chair, I don't see anything. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's a little less complicated than the last one, so thank you.
We should be all set with that now. No action will be taken at this workshop. We'll, as you said, we'll schedule a hearing and put it on a future meeting agenda. Would the Lopes like to say anything, or you're all good?
We're all good.
Okay.
So the question, John, is what's, trying to move from, from the tax map to the subdivision and all that. It looks like lot 9 is a lot wider than lot 11. Is that what we're talking about, 9
Yes.
and 11?
The green, if you go to this, the green is essentially a double lot because of the merger.
Oh, I see. So that what was the width of the original lot?
Well, it's 0.86 divided by 2 is in terms of total area in general terms, or 192 feet of frontage cut in half approximately. So 0.4 tenths of an acre ballpark.
Well, I'm talking about the width, north to south. What is it about?
They'll have a building envelope when all is said and done, if that's kind of what you're getting.
No, it's sort of one. This is something that I ran into when I was renovating my farm. I noticed that the leach field is very close to the lot line, and as I recall, the state, wants you 75 feet clear of somebody else's septic. When we unmerge, are we getting a situation where the other lot can't have a well?
No, essentially the real short answer is that whatever the state's requirements are when they go for leach fields and so forth, they're going to have to either get releases or deal with the applicable rules. We have a lot of non-conforming lots of record today, and that happens as a matter of course. People need to work through that process. So that in and of itself wouldn't preclude the restoration. There could be any number of complicating factors if and when it's time to develop. There could be wetlands on the property, there could be any number of things. These are not particularly tiny lots. The neighboring lots are of similar size. They're all from the same subdivision. So I can't give you an absolute at this point, but if they needed any kind of well radius relief or that type of thing, they'd have to abide by the laws that are applicable when it's time to develop. So it doesn't create any liability on our part.
No, I didn't think it did. I just was wondering if they had thought about that. Okay.
Good question. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All set?
Set money for a minute.
Next item on the workshop is W14-20, 2015 Budget Philosophy, Process, and Schedule. Phil?
Madam Chair, before you get started, is there a date we should set now? So that we...
No,
No?
because we gotta look at the procedure, where it is, where we have room in the meeting schedule.
Thanks, Nate.
I'm sorry. No.
Philosophy, Process, and Schedule.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your record, in your packet, you have, bear with me 1 second. You have a copy of a draft document that I prepare annually regarding general goals and philosophy for the upcoming budget. And in this one, and you also have the schedule. I will go over the schedule. It's pretty straightforward. It's as we've done in the past. The budget documents go to the department heads. They come back to the town manager. Town manager meets with department heads. A budget is prepared for your review. It's presented to you. We then have meetings in early December to deliberate the proposed municipal budget. We have a public hearing early in 2015, and we close the town meeting warrant, basically closes on the 3rd of February. And we have town meeting on March 11th, 2015, and the elections are on March 10th, 2015. The general goals and philosophies draft letter that you have in there states the increase in the budget that we, as a review, the budget is submitted this year, increased the amount raised by taxation by $192,000, but it also included $1 million in available fund balance. As this has been the prior 6 years' budget, this was neither a level service budget nor a level funded budget. As has been the practice in prior years, we've reduced some services. While gains were made in equipment purchases, maintenance, and capital improvement funding, there still remain many other instances where level services have not been maintained. While not readily visible to the public, they still exist. We still have major improvement projects that are in the queue. We appropriated monies this year to begin a feasibility study for replacement public works facilities. And as it relates to our revenues, we have done some things such as reducing or controlling our expenditures for building maintenance, health, and life insurance. But it appears again that revenues received from meals and rooms tax and payment in lieu of taxes are going to be level. And it appears that local receipts for real vehicle registrations has stabilized but has not increased. If you remember when Brenda came in and did the budget update, we had that good news, bad news scenario. We have not seen any growth in that line item. So again, the following considerations as the budget is formulated: we would maintain the current service levels, which again are a reduction in services from prior years. No new positions and no reclassifications. No new programs and services. Analyze equipment purchases and consider purchases for end-of-life equipment, and continue to fund the capital improvement program. Projects and services that we will need to continue to fund is the completion of the feasibility study for the public works facility. Continued consideration of capital improvements that have been deferred, such as equipment replacement, road and street improvement projects, and that considerable effort is given in the budget process to retain current service levels. This is probably the most important part of this budget update, is that it is clear that the continued use of available fund balance is not a sustainable practice. Therefore, consideration must be given to increasing the amount to be raised by taxation to provide for continued support of the capital improvement program, continue public works maintenance and other necessary equipment purchases and maintenance projects that ensure the long-term sustainability of our capital assets. If it sounds a lot like last year's, it is. We haven't had any, let's say, significant net changes. And when I say we haven't had any significant net changes, the need still exists to get our capital improvements program back where it was 7 or 8 years ago and get us back on track. Mike's here tonight, but one of the things we always talk about is that road surface management system, that the goal is to keep your good roads good, and that when a road becomes bad, it fails exponentially. We don't want to get ourselves back in that position, because as you've heard in the past, it's much better to resurface or chip seal or do some work on it than it is to do a major rebuild. And once you get to that point, there's no coming back from that. we're at a point now where the majority of our work is maintenance versus major rebuilds, and we'd like to stay that way. And the reason we like to stay that way is it's the most cost-effective use of funds for road and street maintenance.
Do you want to go right into W14-21?
I don't know if there's any,
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Madam Chair? Eric, am I on?
you should be.
That button's on, but it's not working. There we go. Madam Chairman, just a couple of comments here. It's never too early to get into next year's budget, but I did have the opportunity to read Phil's letter to us. It's a short 2 pages, page and a half, of September 15th, and I would like to see that posted to our website. I, for one, think that it is an excellent document. It's very poignant, to the point, and cites our philosophy in terms of our budget quite well, where we've been, and also over the last several years. And I think it's an important instrument for both the public and our taxpayers to see a succinct summary of what some of the challenges are. And I've been involved with the town budget now 6 years. Almost 9 years. And we certainly have worked our way through some very, very difficult years, commencing basically with 2008. And we've had a pretty well advertised budget philosophy. But we talked about it last year, and the idea of not raising the amount by taxation, controlling expenses, and basically curtailing our capital and investment in capital items was a strategy that we basically fully developed and implemented over the last 4 to 5 budget cycles. But I think also we've reached a point where there is a considerable constraint. We've used up what I call a lot of the good roads, perhaps, and other areas by deferring in those areas in order to try to maintain somewhat the same levels of service, although not identical. And we've used fund balances, our rainy day balances, to accomplish some of that, along with some pretty strict constraints on capital items. And I think from a philosophical standpoint, we were able to do that because we had been through the early 2000, 2002 through 2005 or 6, we had a pretty robust economy. And so we were able to do that. But I think we have to be ever mindful of the constraints of, shall we say, following that philosophy to the hilt in 2015. And some of us recognize that we probably exhausted not only the fund balance from the standpoint of buying down the tax rate impact, not tax rate, but the tax amount raised by taxation, but also we've got to start looking forward and planning for the future. And that future is that we do have roads that do need to be taken care of. We have capital items that have been deferred that are starting to have an impact, and it's not a positive impact. And so I think as citizens we need to look at the philosophy in terms of our commitment to the town of Meredith and see how we may, shall we say, make some adjustments. There's obviously a big side to this, and it's the revenues. We receive about approximately 50% of our revenues from non-tax resources in terms of the amount to be raised by the town. So I think one of the challenges is going to be this year is to try to see if there's ways that we can enhance the revenue opportunities that are there, and find ways to, shall we say, to continue to control reasonable expenses, but at the same time, talking out of the second side of my mouth, looking towards the future and some of the replacement and purchases that have been delayed. It may be, at first blush, a difficult mission, but we've got to get creative, and we've got to try to find ways to increase our efficiencies, to offset some of the natural upward course of inflation and some of the other things that happens. Of course, we're paying more for oil than we were last year. Roads are more. Insurances, expenses continue to rise, and we basically used fund balance and some downshifting and delay of expenses to, shall we say, pay the freight. So I think we may even challenge ourselves to look at other ways to enhance income and revenue improvements. For instance, we all know our senators, we all know our representatives, and looking at the bigger picture, are there ways that some of those non-tax revenues can and should be maybe enhanced? So is there actions that we can take that, shall we say, would share some of that burden, but also recognize that we need to start planning for the future. So I just leave us with that thought, because I find it very difficult to think of the ramifications of trying to support some of these projects and not being able to have the assistance of our reserves and rainy day funds to continue to do that as we have over the last 5 years. So I think it's a big challenge, and my point is we need to look at it as early in the budget as we can. We need to be thinking that way, and perhaps, shall we say, modifying our overall philosophy going into 2015. I'm certainly not saying that we should, let the spoon run away with, and jump over the moon, but at the same time, I think we've just got to be realistic and try to plan forward. It's probably going to take a lot more defending and a lot more conversations to get people on board with that thought. But I think it is the challenge, and I think we have to rise to it. Thank you.
Well said, Peter. Any other comments?
Madam Chair.
Just one question. We talked about the completion of feasibility study of public works. Do we have ourselves in a little pickle there? Because I believe, isn't there storage there that has to be taken care of by December, the end of next year? That would have to have money in before the study's done, or?
Yes, there is an issue with our fuel tanks, but we're researching a few strategies so that we don't have to purchase that equipment independent of the feasibility study and or construction of the facility. We're looking at getting an extension from the state till the project's done. We're also looking at maybe going to other sources for fuel in the interim period. The reason we're not looking at purchasing equipment is it gives me a lot of pause and or heartburn to purchase something that's of a significant amount and then find out somewhere down the road that it's not going to work in a new facility. So if we can get an extension from the state and or use an alternate source, even though it might be a bit of an inconvenience, use an alternate source for a short period, we're better off that way.
If I may ask, what would be an alternate source in that case? We'd have to use somebody private?
Yeah, we could use somebody private, or we could use the state of New Hampshire up in New Hampton. I mean, it's not a perfect solution, but it's one that in an emergency that we could rely on. There's a fueling depot up in New Hampton by 93. I mean, I would recommend that we do that every day because, just the wear and tear and the mileage. We actually looked at that at one point, and just between the mileage and the labor cost to go fuel up, it doesn't make sense. But in the case of an emergency, or in the case that we're stuck, it would be okay.
Right, other comments? Okay. Now you can go into Public Works, DPW equipment purchase, Phil, 14-21.
Thank you. Mike Fallis here tonight. Mike, you might as well come on up. We have two items, if we can just handle them back to back. The first one is the equipment purchase. As you may or may not be aware, it was our original intention, as it has been in the CIP, to replace our sidewalk tractor, which is, by brand name, it's called a holder tractor. And the holder that we have now is well at the end of its useful life, and in replacing it, the cost of replacement, we had slated $110,000, which probably wouldn't cover it at this point with all the attachments. So what's been done is we've done some research. Mike actually attended is that 2 years ago now? Or a year ago when you went to Charlotte?
Yes.
Okay, a year ago he attended a snow symposium, for lack of a better way of putting it, and they had some alternate vehicles and equipment that you can use for sidewalk tractors. Also, I'm aware of communities down south of Massachusetts that have been using these alternate vehicles with much success. And I know one of the questions that gets asked is, well, it'll work down there, but it won't work here because of the volume of the snow. The difference in Massachusetts compared to Meredith is they shovel every sidewalk and make it black every storm, or they don't have school. So a community that's probably 9 square miles probably has 4 sidewalk tractors and runs them just as long, if not longer, than their plows. So anyway, Mike did the research, came up with an alternate vehicle that can do it, and a price for that, which fortunately, and I'll let Mike explain the price, the cost, and what you get for it, falls below the threshold for CIP.
Madam Chairman, is there a staff report or some handout?
No.
Information?
No.
Okay. I'm sitting here looking in vain. All right.
Yep, no, I apologize. On that and Main Street, we were just going to present to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. As Phil stated, the machine is pretty much on its last legs. We're keeping it running. The new machine that we've have found, it's basically like a mini loader. It has capabilities of loading sand, has forks. It fits on a sidewalk, and I've checked with several communities down through Massachusetts, southern part of the state, that are now going to these pieces of equipment and are working pretty well. So the price for the machine right now is running right around $80,000. So, and that comes with a snow blower, a plow, has a bucket, and a sander on the back, I believe. So it's called a Whacker Newson. It's a Whacker, W-A-C-K-E-R, Newson. It's a very small loader, and it should fit on the sidewalks. It's actually the exact same height as our holder. We have to worry about air conditioning units and exhaust fans and signs on Main Street, so I made sure that it would be at the same height, and it is actually right at the same, within a quarter of an inch of the old one. So.
And so where they're using these in other communities, the sidewalks are the same width as our sidewalks?
Yep, some are even narrower, so it should work. I feel it's a good piece of equipment for us to give it a try and see how it works. I feel confident that the reports that I've gotten, not only from the dealership, but other communities, that they're working well.
And the life expectancy of that unit versus a holder?
Well, we got close to 14 years out of the holder. You know, that was a 10-year machine. In light of the budget presentation that was right before this, 14-20, we made some cuts, as Peter alluded to. You know, it's well over its life expectancy. So to answer your question, I would say it's a 10-year machine.
Madam Chair,
Yep.
a couple of the benefits of this new machine versus the holder, and Mike can attest to that. Replacement parts for the holder are very expensive. The replacement parts for this machine are not anticipated to be as expensive because it's a more common machine. The issue with anything more than like nuts and bolts on the holder, they came from, was it Germany?
Correct.
Yeah, all the parts that used to come from Germany for that machine. They weren't readily available in the United States. And as strange as that sounds, there are a lot of the communities that were in the same boat as us with those sidewalk tractors. Secondly, the sidewalk tractor we have today has greatly exceeded its anticipated life. It's really in tough shape at this point. The integrity of the cab is pretty much gone. And the running gear is at the point that if you were to hang on to this machine, you'd probably expend easily $20,000 putting the running gear back into shape if you were to use it as a sidewalk tractor.
Correct. The only thing that the new machine does not have a capability of is mowing the landfill due to the steep slopes. And the width of the machine, it's a little narrower. So basically the thought process was we've looked at trade-in values on this machine and it's virtually worthless. We'd probably just keep it with the mower to mow the landfill once a year instead of hiring somebody to do that. So I think for the holder, for that little bit, would serve us. We mow basically the landfill and Walking One Highlands Park with that. So a couple hours a year, a week maybe.
Peter?
Yes, follow up with Mike if I may. What do we have budgeted for the purchase on this?
We had 110 budgeted originally. I think it was in the vicinity of 120, but even at 120, my opinion, we wouldn't have been all right because the prices of those machines are really going up. The holders are really going up.
One more question if I may. When you said there was little or no trade-in value, I guess my question is, when you're buying a piece of equipment similar to a used car, they'll give you a lot more what it's worth on a trade-in if you're buying something rather than keeping it and doing a couple of mowing jobs with it per year. If parts break and then we have to fix them, are we better off to look at our first loss being our best loss and maybe getting a higher trade-in, if you will, with the purchase of this machine versus losing that opportunity and then selling for scrap, which we know is next to nothing. So I guess that it begs the question to keep it, even if it's little, if we have truly worn it out and the parts are expensive and or maybe not available, are we delaying maybe the inevitable and doing ourselves a disservice?
I think one of the issues is, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, they don't want it.
Not
It's a
really.
it's a different vendor, they don't want it. They probably wouldn't bid on it on a trade-in. And the thought process we're having is that if the thing fails, or it gets to the point that we know it's gonna fail, we'll send it to the White Farm and get $1,000 for it.
But again, if we haven't asked the question, I would ask that we do. Just approach the vendor and say, here's what we've got. We're watching our pennies, we're going to pay cash. Is there an offer on the table to purchase it as part of our purchase? I just hate to hang on to it. If it's 15, 16 years old and it had a original life of 10 and parts are difficult to impossible to get, what's the benefit of hanging on that versus if they'll give you $3,000 or $4,000, shall we say, to entice you to purchase the new vehicle from them? It's all about sales. It's got to work somewhat the same way.
Absolutely, Peter. The question has been asked. They said we'd be lucky to get roughly about $1,000 on trade, if that. And a lot of times they end up working it into the price where they're walking away with it for nothing, and we still pay the price of the new machine. So
Then offer them $76 for the new machine.
I'm pretty good at negotiating with them. But no, it has been talked about, and we can certainly explore that, but I think we'd end up paying that back the first year just to have the landfill mowed, and then some.
In the meantime, Mike, if you let it go, do you have equipment that you can mow those fields with?
No,
So we either have to pay somebody or rent a machine. Because right now, when we do the sides of the roads, we rent the machine to do that. So it doesn't make sense to own it for, what, 4 weeks out of the year?
Well,
I just mowed several acres, more than several. It was running $70 an hour. And my total bill was $980 for, I think that's 14 hours. So that's what it costs to mow. I mean, you're not mowing a lawn.
No.
You're mowing rough stuff, and it's very hard on the equipment.
with the landfill too, it's 40+% slope, so there's very few machines that can do this. A tractor would not do it, so the holder can.
any other comments on that? Okay.
That's what we pay those guys for. Make a good decision. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
this was just brought forward as a board update. I just wanted to make sure there were no concerns with the board, because we'll be purchasing this out of the DPW equipment ETF, even though it's not a capital improvement item. That's what that ETF is there for, but because the price has dropped on the item, it no longer hits the threshold for CIP.
I appreciate the update.
And then 14, you want to stay right there, 14-22 Main Street resurfacing. Are you going to do that, Phil, or Mike going to do that?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Over the past several years, Main Street has popped up, and we've looked at it. It's been placed on hold due to various projects, decisions. I went to Phil I'd say late June, early July, Phil, and I said, we got to do something with Main Street. We just have to. Still not knowing 100% underneath the ground as far as water and what possible improvements may need to happen in the near future. I felt a cold plane which would actually grind an inch off, and then repave that inch. That would smooth it out. It would keep my reveals to the basins, keep my curb reveal. Would be a maintenance fix. It's still around $115,000 to do it all, give or take. I'm hoping it's going to come in a little less than that. What I've ended up doing is I had Corliss Hill Road and Livingston Road slated to be paved this year, overlaid. I've looked at those two roads. They're still in okay shape, and I felt that they could go another year. And I'd like to take those funds that was allocated within my budget and move it to Main Street. The area being...
It was Corliss and what?
Corliss Hills
Yeah.
and Livingston Road.
Livingston.
What I'd like to do is basically from the crosswalk that's right in front of Town Hall, start there, because several years ago we rebuilt the road, Main Street, down to the lights, and that's still in pretty decent shape. I'd like to go all the way to the intersection of Waukee and South Main, head out Waukee Street to the railroad tracks. That would be the end of the project, and everything would get overlaid through that area. What I'd end up doing too is just putting a small overlay on Cross Street down to Lang Street. I wouldn't cold plane that, I would just overlay it. It's pretty well busted up, so. That would be the scope of the work. The cold planing came in around $32,000 through Pike, and I think I'm going to be somewhere in the mid to upper 80s on the P. I'm still looking at that though and seeing if I can tweak some of it.
Madam Chair, we actually have $120,000 allocated between approximately, probably close to 121 allocated for both Collisville and Livingston. We've done fairly well on the paving this year. Old Hubbard Road came in lower than we thought, so we do have the funds in budget to do this year. Our thought is that we would do it, what do you think, Mike, the end of the month?
I have a tentative schedule right now with Pike that we put on for the last week of September. Coming to this meeting, I was going to see if I could work with that and maybe bump it up a couple of days. The cold planing would be done at night to not impact any type of traffic.
Just a little sleepy.
Well, it's no different than removing snow, so.
We, just so you know, had a long discussion about that, and there really is no other option to try and do that during the day.
Of course not.
The paving probably starts somewhere around 4 a.m. The goal would be to pave from Town Hall beyond the post office, I'm saying just beyond Lake Street setback, try to get that ironed out by 7, 8 o'clock. And then if I had to, I could shut that section of Main Street down from Lake Street to Walkie-Wan Street. I could send people across Cross Street and then kind of do it in a phased tier. And then once we're on Walkie-Wan Street, it would be pave everything on one side, come back, pave everything on the other. So we would hope to do it in one day. It's around a 950 ton. So that's definitely doable in a day. And especially starting at 4 a.m. So barring weather, I think we could hopefully do that.
So the total project could take how many days, you think?
Probably 2 days for cold planing, and I would say a good solid day for paving. You know, barring no hiccups with plant breakdowns and trucks and pavers, I would figure within a week we should be able to do it.
Well, because Jim and I want to know how much sleep we got over the night. No.
Other comments? No?
I was just wondering, sort of where does this kind of fit in terms of, road maintenance with respect to Walkie-Wan Street? That's pretty rough stuff out there by the ramps. And so are you projecting that that will fix Walkie-Wan Street for some number of years, or?
Yes, and that some number of years is a question mark. So, I mean, this is a maintenance, it's still not getting down underneath and fixing the subbase. This is just gonna smooth up the cracks. And, it's gonna come in the winter, you're gonna see some cracks next year, it's gonna happen.
No, but I take it that it will be less effective as a maintenance matter for Walkie-Wan Street than for Main Street.
No, I think it's gonna be about the same, to be honest with you, because Main Street's busted up in several areas. A lot of patchwork's done, there's been some settlement. What you see on Walkie-Wan Street, there was actually some spalling where the two layers of asphalt separated, plow hooked into it and peeled it off. So by the cold planing, that's actually gonna shave all that off. I'm hoping to get back down to some good asphalt, some fresher mix with a little bit more liquid in it. So when we put the emulsion on it for the tack coat and then we pave, I'm hoping that really sticks. So, 5 to 7 years, you're gonna start seeing some noticeable failure. But I think at that point, I'm hoping there's some sort of plan in place. That whether it's a revitalization project that comes forward through Greater Meredith program in the town and, but it's gonna buy us some time.
Nate?
My only comment is make sure we publicize, because there's always going to be someone that said, I didn't know this was going to happen. And, particularly the post office, that's all I'm going to say.
I think a good ad in the paper, Laconia Sun, and websites, and we'll probably get some signs up here in another week and a half.
You'll need signs out by 104 because basically Walkie-Wan Street, there is no alternative to 104.
we'll be able to do one-lane traffic on that,
Yeah, okay.
keep it moving.
Madam Chair.
I think this is probably the first good example of, shall we say, our capital improvements program that just didn't come to fruition because of the extent and nature and the cost involved with the downtown revitalization. As most of you know, it was clearly identified from a utility standpoint, lines maybe being brought underground, upgrading of sewer and/or potential with water, that the Main Street area has been, shall we say, delayed in the hopes that we would be able to have an economy and the funds available to, shall we say, do it right the first time. But I think just like we did a little patching with the sidewalk last year, that this is probably not the ideal way to, shall we say, attack our program in the long term, but it's been delayed enough so that we need to do some maintenance to that section from Plymouth Street up and around. And I can't foresee that with the revenues that we have and the budget environment that's still out there, that the downtown revitalization will be done within the next 5 years or so anyway, because of the enormity of it and the cost. So I think it's probably a good step backwards. We all hate to pave something and then tear it up, but my guess is we'll get 5 years worth or so of traffic out of that before it will really be, the downtown project could be considered, with any degree of moving forward. So, it's one of those things, you're not going to bat 1,000, but, 450 will do. So I appreciate you coming forward with the suggestion.
Mike, I have a question regarding the railroad tracks.
Sure.
When you say pave to them, do you mean actually pave to them? I know the condition of the tracks and the free money that we gave away to fix that a couple years ago. I'm just wondering if there's a certain amount of footage where you can that the state has to maintain that part of the road, or is that all of our problem?
I've contacted the state, I've contacted Brian Lombard. Haven't had much success trying to get that. What I was hoping for was to cut the pavement and have them replace the crossing, and then I even volunteered, I paved it in. If I'm going to be there with the mix and the trucks and everything else, another 10 ton is not going to...
So it looks like we're going to end up taking care of that problem at this point.
I've already put a lot of coal patch in it. I think we dumped close to 2.5 ton of coal patch in it just to smooth it up. What I'd like to do is when the coal planer comes in, I would just actually coal plane between the rails and maybe a foot on the other side. And then when we pave it, I'd pave that in just to hold it. It will not last long because that crossing is so bad. So, but it'll buy us a year or two anyway, and then we'll probably start coal patching that area again.
So it won't be like a thing with Barnard Ridge where if we sort of take ownership of repairing it, the state's not going to say, now you own it?
No, we'd just be patching it. The biggest problem, if you're not aware of it, is the railroad ties are in the road. That's what holds it together. So there's not a nice flat surface to pave over. When they do the work, what they actually do is build the base, and then they stick those rubber mats in there, which support it instead of it all being paved over. Eventually, that's the work that's going to have to be done. They're going to have to come in, dig it out, put the base in, and put those mats in, and then cut the pavement so we can pave up to it.
Okay. Anything else?
Just one other question.
Nate?
Madam Chair, just a quick question for either of you. Has there been any progress at all on the unnumbered roads, particularly Meredith Neck and...
And Phil and I had a meeting, I want to say 5 months ago now.
We tried to get something done and haven't heard back.
Haven't heard back.
I can tell you the answer. I know.
Well,
Thanks, Mike.
We'll try again.
Thank you.
Your continued efforts are stellar. Thank you. At this time, we will adjourn the workshop, and we will take a 10-minute recess, and we'll be back at 10 after 5. At this time, please stand and join Phil Warren for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Phil. And now I'd like to introduce the board members. Lou Kahn,
Good evening.
Nathan Tor,
Good evening.
Vice Chair Peter Brothers.
Good evening, everyone.
I am Carla Horn, Town Manager Phil Warren,
Good evening.
and Recording Clerk Karen Landry is not here. That will be done by Phil Warren. Thank you, Phil. Do we have a motion for correction, acceptance of minutes?
Madam Chair,
Excuse me, acceptance of minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes of August 4th, 2014, and August 18th, 2014.
Thank you, Nate. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda for this evening is Town Manager's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The outside agency funding application process is coming to a close. They were due in today. Again, this is the annual process whereby the board receives requests for outside agency funding, and the application process allows the board to better vet the requests. I know this is a renewing one, but used oil is accepted at the transfer station, and it becomes vital this time of year as it starts to get colder. We have reposted the code enforcement officer position with a goal to begin interviews on or about October 1st. Both of our new police officer candidates are in the academy, and they should be done in early 2015. The Conservation Commission is assisting us in cataloging the Japanese knotweed locations in town. This is a new project that the Conservation Commission has taken on at my request. I had a discussion with Mark Billings and Ralph Sapi a while ago about this, because as anybody can see, we have quite a little outbreak or bloom in certain areas. If you are aware of a location on or about your residence or anywhere in town, I would ask that you take a picture of that location and email the picture and the location of where the knotweed is to my email address, pwarren@meredithnh.org. The plan is that with that information, along with what the Conservation Commission goes out and finds, will allow us to catalog where the knotweed infestations are the worst and where they are today, and then we can put together a plan to mitigate or remove the knotweed. The update to the Meredith Hazard Mitigation Plan is completed. Staff members with the assistance of Lakes Region Planning have been working during the past year to complete the 5-year update of the plan. The board will have a workshop on this plan, with the goal being endorsement by the board in the future. I will forward the draft to you once it's 100% finished. Route 104 paving, if you remember, I talked about that a while back. We have a letter from Continental Paving. This is to notify you that Continental Paving will be working on the State of New Hampshire DOT project resurfacing in the towns of Bristol and Meredith on Route 104 for 9.4 miles, 3/4 inch paver shim, Grafton and Belknap counties, working from east of River Road in Bristol, going easterly to the intersection of US 3 in Meredith. This work will begin on or about September 16th and continue through the week, weather permitting. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Phil. At this time, we'll take visitors' and residents' comments if there are any. Moving right into select board comments. Are there any select board comments or reports? Lou?
It's a little stale now, but on August 21st, there was a meeting of the 3 and 25 intersection committee. And in the course of that, the two-lane roundabout at the intersection was killed dead. It was interesting that the engineers from DOT really didn't have a plan B. And so we're still kicking around, and we will meet again on Thursday, a couple of alternatives. One alternative being a single-lane roundabout, which they say won't work. And the other alternative being sort of reconfiguring the intersection a bit and putting in better signalization, if such exists. The main thing is to add, in either case, a second eastbound lane turn, an eastbound turn, and we are going to be studying sort of how much land will be taken and whose land, and can we avoid impinging on the scenic park. The other thing that's going on is we're having discussions about doing something with the Pleasant Street intersection, which seems to be working fine for its purposes, but the idea would be to somehow improve that intersection as a way of improving traffic flow at the shopping center. And so there have been discussions by John Ager with the principal of Cross Point as to how they feel about the subject, and I don't know the answer to that yet. But the thought would be that you'd put either a single-lane roundabout or a traffic signal there and lead traffic for the shopping center and perhaps the bank to the north. They would have an entrance and an exit over by Aubuchon's, behind, sort of behind the movie theater, and the bank would have an exit and an entrance behind the bank. The DOT position is if it's a roundabout at Main Street, it's going to be a roundabout at Pleasant Street. If it's a traffic light at Main Street, it will be a traffic light at Pleasant Street. And none of this is cast in stone. This is still under consideration. The other thing that we have very much under consideration is what to do about pedestrian crossings, particularly on the stretch from Main Street over to Lake Street. And what will be under one of the things that, the big thing that's under consideration, which I think has my own view, not the committee's view, my own view is not going to happen, is a tunnel. Because it was suggested that there are tunnels elsewhere, one example being the Holderness School, where tunnels work very well. Well, the problem with our tunneling is first the water level. You go down a couple of feet and you're in water. But the DOT guys say that there are such things as waterproof tunnels. The only problem is that under the highway run big sewer pipes. And so you'd have to go not only just under the highway, you'd have to go under the highway, under the sewers, and go deep enough so that you didn't have the feeling that you were entering a coal mine. And in order to get down that deep, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, you've got to have a lot of ramp. You got to have a ramp with a grade that no more than 5 degrees. Yeah, it's 5. And the question is there enough land around either of the town on the lakeside or of the property owner on the other side to be able to get those ramps in? My own view is this will not happen. There is not enough room to get the ramps deep enough to get under the highway and under the sewers and make it work. So, what else will we be thinking about? We'll be thinking about signals for the pedestrians of some sort or another. We'll be thinking about a center safety island. And the other thing that we will have on our agenda will be whether or not to have restrictions on left turns northbound from Route 3 onto Dover Street or Lake Street. So all of this is still up in the air, but I think we're coming to the point where we're going to get some decisions made. Indeed, I'm very much concerned about getting some decisions made because I want to bring it back to the board And DOT wants to bring it to a public hearing, which I would hope would be a public hearing of the board, before we start getting into the business of the budget. And so I'm still hopeful that we will get this done in terms of bringing it to the board, bringing a projected solution to the board by the end of October, or at the worst, early November.
You said that their meeting is this Thursday, Lou, could you just?
That's correct.
For the public's purpose, could you just say where it is and what time it is and?
We meet at 3 o'clock at the community center. It is a public meeting. It is not a public hearing, so the public may come and observe. And if that public has information that appropriately should be presented, that's okay. But basically, the public doesn't get to talk. We listen basically to ourselves and to the engineers.
Thank you. Any other select board comments?
Madam Chairman?
Yeah, good. Councilor Peter?
Yes, just wanted to report on the Thursday 9/11 celebration at Heskey Park. It was perhaps a little bit smaller crowd than we'd like to see, but the speakers were profound in their statements and their commitment to remembering. And it was a nice event, and fire department brought the truck down, the aerial platform truck, and had the large flag there. So it was an emotional day as well. So it was a time well spent. So good exercise.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Hey.
Madam Chair, just a quick update probably from Phil on a coyote situation in the geese. It seemed to work a little bit, and I don't know.
Depends who you talk to. If we move them, they work. If we don't move them, they don't work. So we try to move them as much as possible. One of the problems is that a couple of them have gone missing. They have not been tossed into the lake. They apparently have been stolen. So we won't be purchasing any more of them, and we're going to try to keep moving them to see what happens.
Maybe the thieves won't find it.
Maybe we could steal the geese.
You probably find them where somebody has a goose problem. Like a country club.
Are there any other select board comments? Okay, new business, 14-28. Hearing for acceptance of funds.
The hearing notice, the Meredith Select Board will conduct a public hearing consistent with RSA 31:95-B for the purpose of acceptance and appropriation of the following unanticipated revenue. Village Pathway Committee donation $5,000, fuel assistance donation $5,000, Park and Recreation donation $1,655. Hearing will be held September 15th, 2014 at the Meredith Community Center, 1 Circle Drive, Meredith, New Hampshire, during the Select Board meeting, which begins at 4:15 p.m. Questions or comments may be directed to Philip O. Warren Jr., Town Manager, 41 Main Street, Meredith, New Hampshire, or P. Warren at meredith.com.
Thank you, Phil. Do I have a motion to open the hearing?
Madam Chair?
Nate?
Move to reopen the hearing to accept the funds that are
Second.
proposed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing is now open.
Madam Chair,
Phil?
you have a letter from Brenda Vittner in your packet detailing the receipt of funds that we have gotten during the year. If they are over $5,000, we have to accept them in a meeting and vote to appropriate them. The three items again: Village Pathway Committee got a donation of $5,000 for the purpose of funding the Ecology Walk. The Town of Meredith General Assistance received a donation of $5,000 for assisting those in need with fuel assistance. And Parks and Rec got a donation totaling $1,655 for the monies to be allocated to less fortunate children from Meredith, Center Harbor, and Sandwich, enabling them the opportunity to participate in the recreation programs at the Meredith Community Center.
Madam Chairman?
Peter?
Just like to say that it never ceases to amaze me, the generosity that many of our citizens perform in terms of their giving to various needs of the community. And I think this is 3 good examples, again, of where people can do good, and we appreciate it, and we accept it with extreme thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Do I have a motion to accept the donations in the aggregate amount of $11,655?
Madam Chair?
Take comment, then close the.
Oh, she, absolutely.
Sorry, I rushed that process
Comment.
too much.
Any other comments?
You have to give public comment?
Yeah.
Public comment?
There is no public here.
Just has been asked.
Are there any public comments? Okay, now I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
Madam Chair, I move that we close the public hearing on acceptance of funds.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now could I ask for a motion to accept the funds?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I move that the town of Meredith accept the listed donations per RSA 31:95-B in the aggregate amount of $11,655 even, and appropriate the same amounts for the stated purposes of the said donations.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Aye, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item, 14-29, LWWA Septic Grant Program. And we have a visitor here to
Yes.
speak to that, Pat Tarpey.
Sure.
Thank you for being here, Pat.
Well, thanks for having me.
Just a little button.
Okay,
Thank you.
Come on.
thanks. I just wanted to give you an update on both of the grant programs and give you an opportunity to ask me whatever questions you have. I have a little handout I can leave with you that summarizes the key points. We had 2 grant programs that we received funds from DES for. The first was a cost share program to do septic system evaluations. Our program was open to Lake Waukesha in this, Lake Waukesha only, and only to properties within 250 feet of the lake. So it included Center Harbor, New Hampton, and Meredith residents. We sent out a total of 95 letters, and they were not necessarily all eligible, but potentially eligible. And it was open to properties that were over 25 years in age, that we were estimating septic systems, as well as properties where there was no operational permit approval on file with DES. So this program opened last November 2013, and it had a closing date of March 31st of this year, but we've extended it to October 1st. We had enough funds to do 31 evaluations, but to date, we've actually only received 12 applications, so that's a little disappointing. Of the 12, I can tell you that 7 are Meredith properties, 4 are New Hampton, and 1 Center Harbor. 10 of these evaluations have been completed so far, so there's 2 to be scheduled. And that's been part of the issue, it's trying to get these scheduled to when these property owners are up here, and to tie it in with the evaluator who's doing it. We hired 1 contractor, Meridian Land Services, to do these inspections, evaluations. So far, everyone who's participated has been very pleased, even those who were found to be in failure. So, of the 10 that have been done so far, 4 have been found to be in failure. There's another property that we know is in failure that's not going through the program because they know they're in failure, so they don't want to spend the money. We just opened the 2nd program for repair or replacement. So those that have been found in failure can now apply for some cost-sharing funds. Those funds are we will award 10 properties. They can apply to up to $4,000, so it's a third of whatever their cost is to repair. I anticipate they'll need the whole $4,000. And so, as I mentioned, that's just been opened in September. That is also open to Lake Winona properties. So within 250 feet of Lake Winona. Lake Wakiwan properties will have a higher priority as they're closer and closer to Winnipesaukee as well. And it's your drinking water source. So pretty much that's where we're at. And if you have that program, the second one, we have a closing date of December 31st. So it's a smaller window because we want the applications to come in and for them to get these replaced by next year.
Pat, were you able to, I know there was some talk about maybe transferring some of the grant money from the inspection portion toward the repair portion. Were you able to do that, or?
DES has approved that. We're waiting a bit to see if we get some more applications. We did have a couple come in recently, and perhaps because Meredith Health regulation, I think they have to have their evaluations in by December 31st. There may be a few more that come in, so I've extended the open period to October 1st. But whatever is not used, we will turn that into a repair replacement.
Thanks, Pat. Questions, comments? Peter?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. On the 95 letters that you sent out, was there any secondary or follow-up letters? Any recommendations by, let's say, the 30 ones that responded in terms of a method to notify or get other property owners more aware of the program?
Well, we had limited funding to do administrative type costs, so we only sent the 95 letters out. However, there were 2 press releases done. It's been posted on websites. The Wakiwan Watershed Advisory Committee has sent out notices, and they have like 118 on their list, and they sent out a couple of times. And I know your health officer at the time sent out notices directly to whoever was on Meredith's list.
I recall, I guess this goes back a couple of years ago, that the select board, in which I was not a member, adopted, as I recall, a health regulation that if you didn't have an approved septic system, that if you didn't have a certified septic system, be it of what age, that you had to do something. Am I correct? Am I incorrect? There was always this talk about the dirty 30, although the dirty 30 were not necessarily all in Meredith. But as I recall, the Wakiwan Watershed Advisory Committee had come up with 30 locations that had no certified septic system of any age. And I guess my question is of those, what kind of a response have you had?
I'm going to qualify my response to it because I'm not going by whatever list they were working off of. Whoever was on their list, I believe, is on my list. Their list did target just Meredith residents. I know 4 of those properties that were on that list went ahead and replaced their systems in 2013 and didn't wait for either of these grant programs. And as I said, we've had 7 Meredith properties go through our program, and 1 of them was not even on that list, and it was found to be in failure. So we had a broader scope, anything over 25 years of age, whether or not they had an operational approval. So I believe your health regulation was identifying properties that had no operational permit on file.
Excuse me, I think I could add that back to 1955, I believe. The permits, they went back and they checked. These were nothing written down after 1955.
I may be incorrect, but I had the impression somehow that the state didn't require anything until the early 70s. But I guess the question I'm asking, and it sort of relates to your program, is with respect to those who were found to have no certified system, what kind of follow-up has the town been doing? It's all very nice if they would come forward and enroll in your program, but it sounds like they're not. So it sounds like in the absence of a health officer, the health officer who might be appointed has an enforcement job here to remind people who are not in compliance with the town's regulation that they better get into compliance.
Madam Chair, if I could comment on that, I think when you report something in failure, it has to physically be happening. You have to see storage of things running out. I think that's what the state has left it. No, not anymore.
No.
Because at one point, that was about it before you could do anything about it.
Well, some of the properties that have been found in failure in our program do not have breakouts occurring right now, but there are test pits dug, there are, seasonal high water table, and it's found that they are somewhat contained, but they are in failure, they're not treating. But I do believe, I met with John Edgar last week, and I believe this week he was sending out reminder letters to anyone who had not responded.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Lou?
I think, just as a matter of clarification, as I recall, the regulation that the board adopted was not that if you didn't have a certified system, that you had to get one, but rather that if you didn't have a certified system, you had to have an inspection.
Phil just found it on the computer, I'll have him read it to you.
If you don't have, in instances where there's no valid subsurface system design approval on file with DES, owners shall certify to the health officer that the existing septic system or other means of on-site disposal is not in failure. The basis of that certification shall be a current, complete, written evaluation of the on-site disposal system or systems performed by the New Hampshire certified or licensed septic system evaluator. And upon adoption of this regulation, the town shall notify the owners, and within 24 months of that said notification, the current property owners shall submit the required evaluation and certification to the health office.
So we got a follow-up. Well, you say John did one.
I will verify that.
The deadline is, Pat, what did you say, December 31st? I thought it was January.
Well, I'm talking about my program.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The regulation, I think, is January.
January, yep, that was the 24th.
Okay. Any other questions for Pat? Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you very
updating
much.
us. And in the spirit of that, Lou, our next item is 14-30, health officer appointment.
Yeah, I knew that.
Phil, do you want to just brief the board on where we're at with that?
We do not have a health officer or a deputy health officer at this point, so it is incumbent upon the board under RSA 128 to make an appointment as to a health officer and a deputy health officer.
I would suggest to the board, where we're in the middle of filling the code enforcement position, that we maybe would appoint, or I suggest that we would appoint as the deputy Mr. Flanders, who's filling in currently in that position. And then when we hire a full-time code enforcement officer, that person will become the regular health officer. In the meantime, the select board by statute can be the health officer with a designated person to be the contacted person. So that's what I suggest. Phil, do you want to add anything to that, or do you think that's sounds okay, or?
The board's able to do that under the RSA. The way it was in the past is that Bill Edney was the health officer and Jack Dever was the deputy. Jack has since resigned as deputy health officer, and the way I would envision it in the future is just how Colin described it. Mr. Flanders could remain as the deputy health officer, so when we hire a permanent person, he could fill in for that person, as Jack did when Bill was not at work. And for the time being, you could appoint the board health officer, but you have to note that one person has to be, one of the board has to be the contact person.
Madam Chair, then may I suggest that you be the person if we did that, or is that beyond your realm, in your realm, since you do inspections?
That would be, I would be fine with that if the board chooses to go that way. And obviously, it's just very temporary, so hopefully, if we fill that position.
And Madam Chair, if I could, just so you know that right now, Bob would handle as the deputy health officer. If he's so appointed, he would handle the bulk of the work that would need to be done as he's filling in.
Madam Chairman, just a question though. I'm assuming we have a two-point process here. Number one, Bob as the temporary, understanding that our deputy, and then understanding that he would be handling most of those. But we do need to appoint the board and perhaps yourself as the health officer. And I'm assuming that would be if there was a conflict with Bob, a piece of property where he had to recuse himself or something. Is that really the reason for that other temporary appointment of the deputy?
Or if he's not available, do you know
Okay,
this?
or not available.
Yeah, at this time, yes, but under the normal course of circumstances, the main reason is to fill in when the code enforcement officer person wasn't here.
Okay, I was just trying to get at the interim period now where we
Yeah.
do not have one.
Yeah, we need to appoint both a health officer and a deputy.
Thank you. That was my question.
Yeah, we have to, by law, have to appoint both.
Just trying to figure out how to formulate the motion. All right.
Okay.
Have you formulated a motion?
I think I have one.
Okay.
It's a 2-point. Madam Chairman, I make the motion that we appoint the Board of Selectmen with Carla Warren as our temporary health code officer, with the secondary appointment of Bob Flanders as the deputy health officer.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor of those appointments?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
And
Thank you, Bob.
Phil will have the form in our office for us to sign?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Would you like to speak?
Yes, I would like to speak.
Go right ahead.
You're appointing a health officer.
Jim,
Press the button, Jim.
Jim, can you push the red button on the microphone?
At the base.
There you go.
Hey, I got a red light now.
Awesome.
You're in.
In appointing a health officer and a deputy health officer, what is the remuneration, or what salary, fee, how is that going to work? I mean, you're taking one town employee and a town official, but how do they get reimbursed? Because this is not a playboy's position. This is something that is serious to the health of the whole community. So I think that you've got when you depend upon volunteers to do that type of work, which gives them a lot of grief from the homeowners, I think you gotta give something to remuneration. Thank you.
The position is basically covered right now by Mr. Flanders as it is prior to this meeting, and Mr. Flanders will continue to do what he is doing. Instead of appointing him as the health officer where he's a temporary fill-in, we will appoint him as the deputy. He still will be doing the job. We, the board, will just be filling in his absence if needed. Does that answer your question?
And Jim?
It answers my question, but the board then would receive no reimbursement for being called out to a job that is technical and so forth and has not the best of working conditions in my book.
Well, Phil can probably support what I'm going to say. I think that it's town by town. The town decides what the compensation is for
Right.
each one of those positions. And I think it's already set in place. I might not be correct, and Phil can probably correct me if I'm wrong.
Madam Chair, what it states in the RSA is that any such compensation from the town as the selectmen of the town shall fix, is what it states. I think I think Jim's more concerned with the compensation of the board member. If you need to go out, because it's clear that the temporary person is already compensated for his duties. At this point, I see that instance being very rare, number one, and number two, unless I'm wrong, I don't think that there's any, there's any impetus among the board members to establish some type of compensation for that.
If I understood what we were doing under the statute is the board would act, pro tem as the health officer, and that you would be the contact, not the health officer.
Correct.
And the way I see this happening is if some crisis shows up, the board is then in a position to deal with it. You get contacted, the board is in a position to deal with it. I cannot believe the board is going to be doing field inspections. That it will be Mr. Flanders' job. And Mr. Flanders, I don't know what our compensation arrangement is. At one point, he was working for Municipal Resources part-time as a building inspector, no more.
He's an employee of the town.
He's an employee of the
He's a
town.
temporary
Okay,
part-time
so
employee.
he's an employee of the town, Jim, and he gets compensated, but I don't really see that there's any need for the board to be compensated for what the board is likely to do in this position.
Correct.
I'm all set, I just bring the dirt up to the surface so the hole can be filled.
Thank you for voicing your concerns, Jim.
You better watch out, we'll appoint you.
Under old business, 10-27, select board policy. In your packet, I believe, you have a copy of the final draft.
Well, the draft.
And I will entertain a motion to accept it as amended.
Madam Chairman, a question. Whatever was in the packet when I took it, when it showed up on in my computer, I read it, and I had some comments, and I sent my comments to you, and I did not circulate them otherwise other than to give a copy to Phil, and I was wondering what had come of those.
Joe?
Yeah, that was, bear with me 1 second, Lou.
I have my email here if you want me to distribute it.
That's where I'm pulling it up right now. And
Nate and Peter, are you aware of the recent changes that Lou was proposing to make to this document?
yeah, Lou, you had asked, I had changed everything that's in your comments that you had asked, with the exception of The first one, which is the term ordains to adopt, that remains, all the rest of them were done,
I read this email, I don't know, did you see it?
so.
No, he hadn't seen it.
It's basically all, I believe it was all just,
Yeah, I made all the
Typos.
changes except for the,
Okay.
what the
If I may, Madam Chairman, most of my comments were merely corrections of typos and that stuff.
yeah,
The only substantive comments were, ordains is not one of them, where we dealt with the board holding public hearings, the document said that the board could hold public hearings to resolve disputes, and I thought that ought to be clear that we don't resolve disputes that appropriately should be resolved by the courts. We don't have the power to resolve disputes.
That changes in here.
it changes a little.
Okay, it was not in the one that I had in my packet. So because when it came on the computer, okay, it's in there.
It is.
Well, then the only other substantive change was that two abstentions would not block action.
We fixed that too.
Okay, but then I had a question, and the question was, in effect, isn't compensation of the board set by the board as authorized by the town meeting?
Yes.
Done. I'm happy. By the way, I think that this is a great document. I think this is a good thing, answers a lot of questions for somebody coming onto the board who has no idea as to sort of how the board functions. I think it's a good document.
The last one you talked about,
Yeah.
but they, other than compensation, they may be set from time to time by the select board with the approval of town meeting. That's what that sentence now says.
Okay, suits me. I move to adopt the policy as amended.
I had,
well, do you want to just get the motion out and then we can
Yeah, okay.
further comments?
Okay, then I'll second.
Okay, comments.
yep, just if you will. On page 5, which is 54 of our packet, under public hearings, I found just one more typo. About halfway down on public hearings, it said, it should be it instead of ID. Right there. We've cleaned up most everything. It should also note that the select board originally will not hold hearings.
Got it,
Yep.
okay.
There's
Yep.
one. And then the other one that I had was on the next page, under voting abstentions. Am I reading that correctly? I think we corrected that in the final sentence, 2 select board members, but I think in the event that a select board member, it should be 2 select board members, I believe, when we did the last edit.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think those both should read because we have a quorum, we have 5.
Yeah.
So it would take 2 in order to do that. So I think we corrected one spot, but just missed it in the other. Right.
In the event that 2 select board
More than
members are absent from a meeting, the remaining 3 members of the board shall constitute a quorum, and all decisions made shall have the same effect as any other decision on the entire board unless otherwise presented by law. In the event that 3 select board members are absent,
No, you're on the wrong one.
Oh.
That's G. I'm down under voting abstentions.
voting abstentions. In the
It's-
event that
it's
select
aye.
board members should voluntarily abstain from voting, such action shall not count towards the tally. If more than 2 select board members abstain from a vote, no action shall be taken.
It's a good document.
Any other comments before we motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Yep.
We,
Yes.
So before we adjourn.
motion to go into non-public.
Was, you want such a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the board adjourn and re-adjourn into a non-public session pursuant of RSA 91A:3, Roman numeral 2, A, dismissal, promotion, compensation of any public employee or disciplining of such employee, and investigation of any charges against him or her, unless the employee affected, 1, has a right of public meeting, and 2, request a meeting to be open in which the case request shall be granted.
And second,
Second.
and we just take a vote for that.
You just take a vote, because you'll have to take a roll call vote when you physically go in, and I'll vote accept.
Correct.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now I need a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting.
It's
Well, that was,
so moved. It was all in there, wasn't it?
yeah, it was all in there, yep.
Okay.